Gas station, 6:41 p.m., rain on metal. According to the station's security footage, the boy in the gray hoodie stood shivering by pump 3, holding a loaf of bread and a carton of milk. He counted folded bills with the care of someone who had memorized their creases. Witnesses stated the wind was pushing hard across the lot, pushing diesel smell and cold mist under the awning. A motorcycle rolled in, black, low, patched rider, helmet off, gray in the beard. He patted his pockets once, twice, then looked at the card reader as if it might help. The clerk behind the counter later said the boy's eyes flicked from the biker to the register total, then back again. He swallowed, the clerk reported. Then he did something most folks don't do. The boy moved to the biker, voice low. "You good?" On the audio, his sentence ends with a question mark you can feel. The writer, later identified as a man called Rex, answered, "Wallet's in my other vest. Tank's on E. I'm not trying to cause a scene." The boy nodded. He held up a thin wad, 1 5 10 ones. "I got 15. "Kid," the clerk interrupted from behind glass, "you're short for your groceries." According to the receipt timestamped 6:42:17 p.m., the boy placed the bread and milk aside, slid the cash across the counter, and said, "Pump 3. There's a silence in the footage, no sound but rain on the awning and the pump clicking alive. The biker didn't smile. He stared like he couldn't square the math. "I can't take that," he said, hands up. The boy shook his head. "You can. It's cold." The biker stood there, hands out to air, then nodded, slow. "All right." Witnesses stated some eyes in the store cut sideways. Leather vest, patch, the word people use online more than in real life. Hell's Angel. In interviews later, none could recall the exact design. At 6:43:39, the boy's hands cupped the pump nozzle, rain sliding off his hoodie sleeves. The biker reached for his pocket again and came up with nothing but a metal keyring, worn smooth, a tiny stamped eagle, and a phone with a cracked screen. The boy nodded toward the tank. "Full as 15 can get," he said. According to the surveillance camera log, they didn't exchange names. The boy took his bread and milk, now abandoned and unpaid, walked out into the weather, and kept walking. The station manager later said he paid for the groceries himself. The biker leaned on the bike, hand over his mouth like he'd lost the words before he could say them. Disclaimer, like and subscribe for more stories that challenge prejudice and celebrate courage. Part 2, Apartment 2B, One Hall Light Out. What happened next is pieced together from a mother's account, a quiet kitchen, and a sink that wouldn't stop dripping. "We needed that," Denise Porter said. "Bus for the week and eggs." Her son, Jamal, 16, kept his voice flat, as if keeping it steady could keep the air from breaking. "Mom, he was stranded." "And we're what?" she asked. "Anchored?" The fridge hummed. 2 magnets held a notice for an overdue light bill. The numbers were blacked out in blue pen, but the outline of the stress remained. "It was 15, Jamal said. "Last 15, she replied, not raising her voice, a statement annotated by hours of work and broken pay cycles. In a notebook on the table, a list. Math homework, shift at the rec center, call counselor. According to school records later shared for publication, Jamal had missed 2 days the month prior to pick up his little cousin from daycare. "He had a patch," Denise said. "Those people ride together. He had somebody." Jamal didn't answer. He took a cup from the cabinet, turned it in his hands. He said only, "He looked cold." Denise held his eyes for a long time. Then she took out $4 in quarters from a jelly jar marked laundry and pressed them to his palm. "Tomorrow," she said. "We figure out tomorrow." At 10:13 p.m., a neighbor's Facebook post went up. Grainy photo of a boy in a hoodie by Pump 3 and a caption, "Kid gave his last to a biker at Speedway. Anyone know him?" By morning, it had 112 shares. In the comments, some called it foolish. Others called it love. One wrote, "Trust me, those guys don't need charity." Another wrote, "We never know which $15 becomes a bridge." Part 3. The return to Pump 3, the note. According to a subsequent transaction log, a black motorcycle returned to the station the next day at 8:04 a.m. The rider took off his helmet, stepped inside, and scanned faces. He carried no patch that named his club on the front of his vest. The clerk, Mr. Patel, later identified him as the same man. "Kid," the rider asked, "yesterday?" Mr. Patel said, "He's a minor. If I had a name, I wouldn't give it to you." The rider nodded like he respected the line. Witnesses recalled that he left a note on a yellow legal paper. "For the kid with the hoodie, you have a friend. Rex." He left it with a $100 bill beneath it, tape across the top to keep it from disappearing faster than the ink could dry. According to the clerk, it disappeared anyway, not the money, the note. A woman in a blue parka took a photo of it. That photo would be the one sent to us later with the subject line, "Story?" Jamal walked to school that morning. He wore an extra pair of socks because his only pair of sneakers had taken water. He told the counselor, when asked if he was okay, "I'm fine." He asked for information about the after-school job board. At 10:37 a.m., he stood outside, in the breeze, counting the slate clouds over the football field like someone trying to count the spaces between paychecks. The assistant principal called him to the office after lunch, not for discipline, for a hallway conversation that began with, "I saw something online." Jamal said, "I don't want trouble." The assistant principal replied, "Neither do I, but I do want you to know there are people who would like to help." Jamal looked at the floor. On a phone on the desk, the Facebook post showed his shoulders, the smallness of his frame under wet fabric. A social worker left a voicemail for Denise about bus vouchers. On the way home, near the deli, a man in a leather vest spotted him. "Hey," the man called, not loud, just enough to carry. "You Jamal?" Jamal hesitated. People watched. According to one witness, Jamal took a half step backward. The man held up both hands. "My name's Rex. Yesterday's gas." He kept a careful distance, as if the air itself needed to stay calm. "I want to talk to your mom," he said. "This isn't for show. I owe you." Part 4. The doorway meeting, bare feet on linoleum. The visit at apartment 2B is described by both sides. Denise said she kept the chain on the door. Rex said he understood. "Who are you people?" Denise asked through the gap. Rex looked past his reflection in the peephole and said, "I'm a writer. Been writing 20 years. I'm also a dad and a vet. I left my wallet in my other cut. Your boy didn't leave me." He held up the $100 bill folded twice. "This isn't charity. It's what's right." Jamal stood 2 steps behind his mother. Neighbors kept their doors open just a crack. The hallway had that vinegar smell old buildings carry in winter. "That patch," Denise said, voice level. "People got ideas about those patches." "People got ideas about hoodies too," Rex answered, not combative, just a weathered truth laid down between them like wood on a floor. Denise closed the door, unlatched the chain, opened it again. Rex stepped inside the threshold, boots at the mat. He handed the money to Jamal, who tried to hand it back. Rex didn't take it. "You kept me from pushing a heavy bike a mile to the nearest shoulder," he said, "and from freezing my hands off." He unfolded a second paper, creased in quarters. "Also this," he added. It was a receipt. Gasoline, pump 3, $1,500. "I figured you'd want this for your mom's ledger." Denise took it. "You think we don't keep track?" she asked, with the faintest edge of a smile. "I know you do," Rex said. He didn't sit. He didn't ask for water. He took off his gloves and tucked them into his belt. "I can't square it," he said quietly, glancing at Jamal. "You helped me with nothing to gain. I want to put something on the scale." His gaze shifted to the window, duct-taped frame, soft curtain lifting with the draft. He saw a math textbook open on the table, a bus schedule folded in half, and the overdue notice under a magnet. These details would be noted later by our field producer, present with permission to record. "There's a garage on River Street," Rex said. "They teach kids to wrench on weekends. Some of us mentor there. It's not a gang house, it's a community shop. You like tools?" Jamal's answer was a small nod. "I fix my cousin's scooter." "I can make a call," Rex said, "if you and your mom say yes." Denise's fingers pressed into the paper of the light bill as if it might become less heavy under pressure. She said, "We don't want strings." "They won't tie you up," Rex replied. "If anything, they cut some loose." Part 5. The plan, counter-narratives and permits. By the end of the week, a plan had moved from talk to paper. Based on emails reviewed for this story, a network of writers, some in formal clubs, some independent, began coordinating a group ride to Jamal's block. The idea was simple. Return kindness times 100, in ways that mattered on a Tuesday morning as much as on a headline. The language online, however, was not simple. In comment threads, the label Hell's Angels stuck to Rex like glue, though no club confirmation was ever given, and he never used the name himself. Rex posted one message on a public page. "I'm a writer, I'm a neighbor, keep your labels, bring your heart." The garage on River Street, Rivera Cycle Works, sent a letter of interest to Jamal's school counselor. "We would like to offer a part-time paid apprenticeship to Mr. Porter pending parent consent and academic schedule alignment." The counselor forwarded it to the district's work-based learning coordinator. There were forms, safety training, hours limit, liability coverage. Officer Lee from the Community Affairs Unit confirmed a call. They asked about permits for a charitable ride. They asked about not alarming the neighborhood. They wanted to do this right. According to the permit application, the route would include Pine, Jefferson, and Midvale, with an agreed stop engine off on Maple so as not to rattle windows. A food pantry volunteer attached a list: milk, eggs, bread, diapers, size 4. A bank ledger, the one riders shared later, shows deposits totaling $18,000 over 5 days, $10 from a line cook, $250 from a carpenter's union, $5 from a college student, and so on. The note field often read, "For the kid at Pump 3, in a small thread on a local message board, there were other notes. "If 100 leather jackets roll up on Maple, I'm calling the cops," one neighbor wrote. A pastor replied, "We asked the cops to be there, to wave." Denise, shown the email trail, said, "I still didn't want to show." We asked Jamal if he did. He said, "I wanted my mom to breathe easier. If that requires engines, okay." Part 6. The shop, the binder, doing it right. Rivera Cycle Works sits under an old billboard that once advertised a chain restaurant that doesn't exist anymore. Inside, the smell of oil and citrus cleaner mixes with something like history. Photo frames of women in work shirts, men in grease, a shelf of trophies none of the staff talk about much. Luz Rivera, owner, kept a binder. She showed us the tabs. Apprenticeship agreements, OSHA, emergency contacts, and mentors. Her hands had permanent stains the color of the work. "We take kids who keep showing up," she said. "Show up on time, hands open to learn, that's it." She held up a new shirt, gray, the shop logo small over the chest. No hero capes, just shirts. According to an internal memo, the shop had space for one more trainee that cycle if they reworked Saturday hours. "I'll rework them," Luce had scribbled in the margin. "Make this work." We observed a meeting with the district coordinator over speakerphone. "You understand," the coordinator said. "The student needs to maintain grades." "We'll check in," Luce replied. "You understand," she added. "He's taking 2 buses sometimes. If he's 10 minutes behind because the system's behind, we'll train the system to be kinder." The coordinator laughed softly, not disagreeing. On the wall, a poster read, "Torquay is nothing without balance." Reclining against a lift, Rex watched Jamal edge near a tool chest like you would a dog you want to befriend. Respectful, ready. "This is yours if you take care of it," Luce said, opening a drawer to show wrenches lined up like a small metal choir. "If you don't take care, it becomes somebody else's. Simple." Jamal nodded. "Yes, ma'am." He wore his backpack at both shoulders. "Also," Luce added, "you'll get $15 an hour to start. School first, hours after. This isn't charity, it's wage for work." Jamal said nothing for a second. Then he said, "I won't waste it." Part 7. The ride. Engines off on Maple. According to a drone shot provided by a local photographer, they came in like a river of chrome and denim, then slowed to a trickle. At 9:57 a.m., 100 riders turned engines off on Maple and coasted the last yards. Police lights flashed blue in a friendly way at the intersection. Officer Lee stood with palms out, directing, a smile more directive than his hands. Neighbors gathered at porches in bathrobes and work coats, some folded arms, some lifted phones. Denise stood in the doorway, one hand at her throat, thumb pressing something there we couldn't see. "I told them not to be loud," Rex said in our mic, tapping his helmet with 2 fingers as he set it down. He had asked the men and women around him to leave their labels under their jackets. Many did. Some wore patches half hidden. The words on a hand-painted banner in the lead truck read, "Maple Street, we are guests." A woman in scrubs leaned to a teenage boy next to her. "You see the cameras?" she asked. He nodded. "I see Jamal," he answered. "I see Mom's hands shaking." Rex stepped onto Jamal's cracked front walk. He paused at the bottom stair, waiting for permission. Denise gave one nod. "That is on video." He handed her an envelope. Inside were documents, photocopies of checks to the utility company for 3 months' coverage, a bus voucher, a letter of offer from Rivera Cycle Works, a note from the district confirming the apprenticeship alignment, a debit card with the ledger printout showing 18 fours pooled, $8,000 reserved for a small education fund with a local credit union, $4,000 for rent support, $2,000 for groceries through the pantry, the remainder for tools, clothes, and an emergency reserve overseen by the church treasurer, and the school social worker. "This is too much," Denise said, voice more breath than words. Luce approached with a box. "Just right," she said, setting it down like it held a heart. Inside, boots, a shop shirt, safety glasses, a used laptop with a fresh power cord, the corners scuffed but the keys solid. "You start Saturday," she told Jamal. "If you want it." "Yes, ma'am," he said, the words clearing like a sky after weather. Part 8. The gift that changed the day-to-day. What matters is not a single moment, but a sequence that holds. According to the credit union's statement shared with consent, the education fund was opened in Jamal's name, with Denise as custodian until he turned 18. The treasurer kept the ledger and the passwords on 2 separate sheets of paper in 2 separate places. "We're not naive," she told us. "We don't do miracles. We do receipts." The pantry volunteers unloaded quietly. No handing bags over like trophies, no photo ops with cans in hands. Bread and eggs found counter space. Diapers found their way to the right apartment up the hall. A contractor whose brother rode in the line that day fixed the soft stair near the top of the building without sending an invoice. We confirmed he had a city permit already on file. Someone's auntie made a pot of red beans and rice and kept saying, "Eat, talk later." Jamal opened the tool chest with 2 hands as if it might bite. It didn't. He lifted the smallest wrench and rolled it between his fingers. Rex nodded once. "First thing about a wrench," he said, "is knowing when it's too small and letting it go for the right size." Jamal smiled, just a line. "I'm learning." "Yeah," Rex said. In interviews recorded on the curb, a neighbor in a green hat admitted, "When I heard all those engines, I thought, trouble." But it was groceries and paper with numbers. It was permission slips. Another said, "We got good men in leather, and we got bad men in suits. Don't get it backward." In a follow-up visit to the school, we saw the counselor's bulletin board. A new paper thumbtacked in the corner read, "Jamal Porter, Rivera Cycle Works, Saturday training." Next to it, a list of assignments due. It mattered that school stayed in the center of the picture. Luce insisted on it. "You miss class, you miss wrench," she told him. "We don't trade one muscle for another around here. We build both." Part 9. What they said when it quieted down. Interviews tell the truth of a day differently than numbers do. Denise, "I don't know the right words to say thank you that don't sound like I'm asking for more." "I'm not. I'm saying I saw how they stood back and didn't crowd my boy. That was thank you too." Rex, "People call me all sorts. I'm not here to fix how the internet sees me. I'm here to pay weight where it's due. That kid did not check a label before he offered help. That's how I want people to see me when I'm useful and to ignore me when I'm just noisy." Luce, "He stands like someone who's been told to make himself smaller. We're going to give him a lift where he can stand full height without bumping his head." Officer Lee, "Best call I had this month was a call I didn't have to take because people coordinated permits and parked where they said they would." Jamal, "I didn't do it to get a box of anything." He glanced at the camera and then away. "I did it because it was cold." An older rider named Mama Joe. "We came quiet. We left quieter. I wish the internet could hear quiet." On a porch down the block, an older man kept his counsel until the last moment of our long day. Then he tapped his cane twice and said, "Everybody in this country thinks they know what a boy in a hoodie means. Everybody thinks they know what a patch means. Most of them are wrong twice." According to the school's attendance system, Jamal showed up in the week following, on time, every day. According to Rivera Cycle Works, he wiped down his station without being asked and put the wrench back where it belonged. According to Denise, the first Saturday evening he came home smelling like oil and oranges, and she smiled before she knew she was smiling. Part 10. Ledger, weather, and what lasts. There's a ledger, and then there's the weather report you keep in your own chest. The ledger shows this: 18 throwers raised, dispersed with signatures, a part-time apprenticeship documented, bus fare loaded on a card, utilities current. The weather report, per interviews and follow-ups, shows this: a mother sleeping an hour deeper, a boy standing a little taller, a rider stopping by on Tuesdays to lift heavy groceries without making a speech about it. We asked Jamal what he'd tell his earlier self, the one under the gas station awning, rain tapping the metal like a clock you can't stop. He said, "Don't do math with your heart, do it with your feet. If your feet can walk home, you okay, help the man." We asked Rex what he'd tell people who called this a publicity stunt. He said, "Publicity is when you put your face in the front of the camera. This was when we put paper in a mom's hand and got out of the way." Someone online still called him a Hell's Angel last week. He didn't answer. His club name, if he had one, never came up on record. What remained on record? A receipt for $15, a hollow in a gas tank filled, a block visited by 100 riders who came with quiet hands and left with quieter hearts. A pastor we spoke to summed it up with a line he said he learned from his grandfather, a line he wrote on the back of a used envelope and handed to Jamal. Courage keeps the light on, while kindness fixes the fuse. The boy put it in his pocket with his bus card. Disclaimer: like and subscribe for more stories that challenge prejudice and celebrate courage.